Good morning. My name is Eric Kennedy, and today we will be performing an experiment using pennies. Here, taking the copper oxide off of the outside of the pennies to make them shiny again. To do that, we're going to be using a solution of white vinegar and salt. There is a 1/4 cup of white vinegar and 1 teaspoon of salt in here. Using my plastic spoon, stirring it up, getting it as saturated as possible. And then we are going to first put our pennies in the solution. The weak acetic acid mixed with the salt will help to dissolve the copper pennies, or the copper oxide off of the pennies, making them shiny again. What we're going to do next, after we get done with these, we're going to take the pennies out. We're going to throw them in this clean water to allow the copper oxide to wash off the outside of the pennies in the water itself, leaving them shiny once they get back into the oxygen. After that, we will take a few pennies, we will put them back in the solution, allow them to dissolve one more time, and then put them on a paper towel that will allow them to air dry, showing the blue copper oxide effect whenever it dries within just oxygen instead of cleaning it off first. Shaking the pennies around, get a little bit more surface area covered in this weak acid solution. Now, these pennies have been in here for about a minute. We're going to go ahead and transfer some of them over into the water solution itself here. All right, so I have about 5 pennies in my hand. I'm going to put them in the water, allow them to wash themselves off. Nice and clean. Then we're going to allow those to air dry after they soak in the water for a minute, while we also let the ones air dry that haven't been washed in the solution, haven't been washed in the water, and see the difference that they make whenever they end up drying. All right, we have our paper towels here. We have 2 paper towels. One will be for the washed pennies. One will be the pennies that are going to air dry. Alrighty, for the washed pennies, go ahead and pop these out. 2, 3, oops, 4, 5. Alrighty, I'm going to pat those dry. We'll take a look at them here in just a second. Good. And then got that a little bit wet, so I'm going to get a new paper towel. So we're just going to put the ones that just have the acid and the salt on them and see what happens to them over the next few minutes as they dry off. Some of these pennies are a lot dirtier than others. As you can see, this one, some of it came off, but a longer drench in the solution will probably get the rest of that oxide off. On the back side of it, you can see it's nice and shiny. So I think this top side here is just a little bit dirtier, has a little bit more corrosion on it. We're gonna let those hang out. And then these here, we're washing the solution, nice and shiny, brand new looking penny. We're gonna let those air dry as well, now that they've been rinsed in water. All right, and while we are giving these time to oxidize with the air and do whatever it is they're going to do over the next few minutes, we're going to take a couple of stainless steel bolts, throw them into the acid solution, and see if we can't get them to collect some of that copper oxide that's floating around in there now. So we're going to let these hang out. We'll swirl them around a little bit. And these will just sit while we let these oxidize as well. Okay, so these have been sitting out of the solution drying for about 10 minutes now. As you can see, pennies that were washed in the water stayed nice and shiny, brand new looking penny. On one of them, interestingly enough, I don't know if you can see this in the camera, it started to develop red marks on the face of the penny itself. Finding why that happens I haven't really been able to figure out why exactly that's happening yet. However, during another experiment, I noticed that aluminum foil, when put back into the acid solution, will begin to turn red and dissolve. That is because the copper oxides are dissolving the aluminum particles themselves I don't think pennies have any aluminum in them. They seem to be zinc and copper only. But I'm going to do some more research to try to figure out why that red got onto the outside of the penny after it was washed in the water. You can see on the pennies that weren't washed in the water, a couple of them have started to develop a little bit of that green and blue on the outside of the penny. There's not a ton of it, but most, if not all of these pennies are newer, so post 1982. And once that happened, some of the copper was taken out of the pennies. Pennies pre-1982 seem to react a little bit more aggressively with the acid solution because of the higher copper content on them. One more thing I did while we were waiting on these pennies to sit and dry was I got a couple of stainless steel nuts here. So they were nice and shiny and silver whenever I pulled them out of the bag, but now they are a dark, almost gray-black color. And that is because once these went into the solution, the steel attracted the iron oxide, or the copper oxide that came off of the pennies themselves and clicked on the surface of these nuts here. It's a very interesting thing that can happen when you put a different material back into a solution that already has the exogenous materials, the copper oxide inside of it. That concludes my experiment here. Again, my name is Eric Kennedy. This is for Chemistry Level 1. Thank you very much.